Today we are going to study another chapter from history. Chapter 9, The Great Akbar. Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar was the greatest ruler of the Mughal dynasty and one of the greatest rulers of India. He brought glory to the empire and is called Akbar, the Great. So, Akbar's full name was Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar. He is called Akbar the Great. Why he is called Akbar the Great? Because he brought glory to the empire. After Humayun's death in 1556, Akbar was proclaimed the king. He was only 13 years old. Bairam Khan was appointed Akbar's regent. The Mughal Empire at this time had just been re-established and was therefore not very strong. The Rajputs and the Afghans were waiting for a suitable opportunity to expel the Mughals from India. So when did Akbar occupy the throne? It was after Humayun's death in 1556. He became the king. And he was only 13 years old when he occupied the throne. And Bairam Khan was appointed Akbar's regent. What is regent? A person who rules on behalf of the king. Because Akbar was only 13 years and there should be someone to guide him. So it was Bairam Khan. He was appointed as the person to rule the king or guide Akbar in his ruling. The Mughal Empire at this time had just been re-established and therefore it was not very strong. The Rajputs and the Afghans were waiting for a suitable opportunity to expel the Mughals from India. We see the expansion and consolidation. Second Battle of Panipat. So when we study about Second Battle of Panipat, you may remember that the First Battle of Panipat. The First Battle of Panipat was taken place between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi in 1526. So Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi and occupied Agra and Delhi. You may remember that in our previous lesson we studied. In 1526, Babur defeated Ibrahim Lodi and occupied Delhi and Agra in the First Battle of Panipat. Now we are going to see the Second Battle of Panipat. In the Second Battle of Panipat, the Afghan Emperor Adil Shah desired the throne of Delhi. His general Hemu, remember, his general Hemu advanced with a large force on Delhi. He occupied Agra and Delhi. In November 1556, a fierce battle was fought between the Mughals and Hemu. This was the Second Battle of Panipat. So when was the Second Battle of Panipat? In 1556. In 1526, it was the First Battle of Panipat, and in 1556, the Second Battle of Panipat between Akbar and Hemu, the Afghan general. Okay. This was the Second Battle of Panipat. Akbar defeated Hemu in this battle. This victory crushed the power of the Afghans and the Mughals reoccupied Delhi and Agra. A few years later, Akbar entered the regency of Bairam Khan and took over the administration. He decided to annex more territories so that the Mughals could be the supreme power in India. Akbar strengthened his control over Gwalior and Ajmer. In 1562, the Mughal forces annexed Malwa. In 1564, Akbar attacked the kingdom of Gondwana. Its queen Rani Durgavati put up a stiff resistance and died fighting. Next, we go to Rajputs. Akbar realized that he needed support from Rajputs to consolidate his empire. So he offered them his friendship. He took various measures to gain the loyalty of the Rajputs. Akbar defeated the Rajputs but did not humiliate them. He treated them with respect. He allowed most Rajput kings to continue ruling over their territories. He did not interfere in their internal affairs. See how considerate Akbar was. Akbar, though he defeated Rajputs, he did not humiliate them. Instead of that, he treated them with respect. And he even allowed them to rule their own territory. He defeated them and allowed them to continue ruling that. Okay. Even he did not interfere in their internal matters. Akbar married into Rajput families. He married a Rajput princess called Jodhabai. So Akbar's wife's name, Jodhabai. His sons also took Rajput princes as their wives. The Rajput ladies were given complete religious freedom. Akbar gave high posts to Rajput chiefs in his administration. Raja Man Singh and Raja Birbal, two of his most trusted officials, were Rajputs. However, not all Rajput rulers accepted Akbar's hand of friendship. Uday Singh, the ruler of Mewar, fought against the Mughals. Akbar defeated him and went on to conquer Chittoor and Ranthambore. Uday Singh's son, Rana Pratap, continued the fight against the Mughals. Okay? Who is Uday Singh? The ruler of Mewar. And his son, Uday Singh's son, Maharana Pratap, continued the fight against the Mughals. Akbar defeated him in the Battle of Haldigati in 1576. In which battle? The Battle of Haldigati in 1576. Though defeated, Maharana Pratap fought the Mughals throughout his life. He also recovered a major portion of his kingdom. So Akbar built a vast empire thereafter. He conquered Gujarat in 1572 and in 1574-76 he conquered Bengal and Bihar. Between 1585 and 1595, Kashmir, Sindh, Kabul, Kandahar and Balochistan were brought under the Mughal kingdom. Akbar annexed Orissa in 1592. In the Deccan, Akbar brought Berar, Kandash and parts of Ahmednagar under the Mughal rule. Here we have to mention a name who tried to resist the powerful Mughal ruler, Akbar. That is Chand Bibi, the ruler of Ahmednagar. She tried hard to defend her kingdom against the Mughal forces. Mughal forces, at that time, it was the most powerful force. Okay, so she, with her limited forces, tried to resist Mughal forces and to defend her kingdom. So her name should be remembered. The ruler of Ahmednagar, that is Chand Bibi. Okay. Then let us see the administration during the Mughal rule. Mughal administration under Akbar was a mix of Central Asian and Indian traditions. It was a centralized monarchy with Akbar holding absolute power. Reports from nobles and department heads were read out to the emperor at a particular time. Their meeting was held in Diwan-i-Khas, hall of private audience. Remember, the meeting of emperor and the different departmental heads were held at Diwan-i-Khas, that is called hall of private audience. Akbar held his court for the general public in the Diwan-i-Am, hall of public audience. So there were two halls, one for private meeting, another one for public meeting. So the private meeting was called Diwan-i-Khas and the hall for public meeting was called Diwan-i-Am. Next, we go to the central administration. The emperor was the head of both civil and military administration. He took all major decisions concerning the empire. He was assisted by many officials. So different officials' names are given there. The Wazir or Diwan was the head of the revenue department. The Mirbakshi looked after the military department. The Khani Saman attended to the needs of the royal household. The Sadri Sadur kept a record of grants and donations made by the emperor. The Kasi was the chief judge. Provincial administration. The empire was divided into provinces called Subas, each headed by a governor called Subedar. He served as a link between the province and the emperor. Subedars were responsible for the administration of provinces. They were assisted by a number of officers. Each Suba was divided into sarkars or districts, and each sarkar into many parganas. A pargana consisted of many villages. The lowest administrative unit was the village. It was under a panchayat. So you have to remember, each empire was divided into provinces called Subas. Suba was taken care of by Subedar, and each Suba was divided into sarkars or districts, and each sarkar into many parganas, and a pargana consists of many villages, and the lowest administrative unit here was the panchayat or the village, and it was under a panchayat. The Kotwal looked after the town administration. He performed both police and civil duties. Remember, the head of police department was the Kotwal. He caught criminals and maintained law and order. He had to maintain a record of people living in his area and keep a check on weights and measures. His office was called the Kotwali, a term that is still being used. Next we go to revenue administration. Land and trade were the two main sources of revenue in the kingdom. What were the main sources of income or revenue? Land and trade. Akbar made a minor modification to the revenue structure introduced by Sher-Shah. Raja Tormal, Akbar's revenue minister, introduced a land revenue system which came to be known as Todarmal's Bandobast. So what it was known as? Todarmal's Bandobast. Under the new system, land was properly measured. In the past, it used to be measured with a rope. However, the rope shrunk when it was dry and stretched when it was wet. Hence, the measurements used to change. Todarmal introduced a new measuring device. It was a rod made of bamboo reeds joined together by iron rings. Now, land could be measured accurately. After measurement, land was divided into three categories: good, average, and bad. The revenue was fixed according to the fertility of the land. So, after the measurement, land was divided into three categories: good, average, and bad, looking at the fertility of the land. What is fertility? How much the fertility of the soil, how much the land can produce what is called food seeds or food items. So depending on the fertility of the land, it was divided into three categories. They are good, average, and bad. So according to that, the revenue was fixed. In 1580, a system called the Daksala was introduced. Under this, the average produce and the average price over the last 10 years were calculated. That is Daksala. The tax to be paid for the year was fixed on the basis of this average. Generally, 1/3 of this figure was the share of the emperor. Akbar encouraged both internal and overseas trade. India exported textiles, spices, indigo, and saltpeter to China, Central Asia, and Europe. Next, we go to army administration. The most important feature of army administration was the Mansabdari system. You have to remember the Subedari system we have seen, and now we are going to the army. In the army, it was Mansabdari system. The term Mansab means a rank or position. A Mansabdar was a person who held a particular rank, a particular position in the army. His rank determined his salary and his military responsibilities. A Mansabdar's rank was divided into two, Zat and Sava. Sat and Sava. The former determined the number of soldiers under him, and the latter the number of horses he was expected to maintain. So, the Mansabdar's rank was divided into two, Zat. Zat means a number of soldiers. How many soldiers will be under him? It will be determined by his Zat. And secondly, Sava. Sava was showing how many horses he had to maintain. The Sat ranks ranged from 10 to 10,000. Generally, those above 5,000 were reserved for princes. The salary of Mansabdar was fixed in cash. However, it was paid by assigning him a jagir, a piece of land, taxes from which would be equal to his salary. He was expected to collect a revenue from his jagir. With the money collected, maintain his household and pay his troops. Mansabdars were promoted, demoted, or transferred according to the wishes of the emperor. A Mansabdar's rank was not hereditary. When a Mansabdar died, his jagir was taken away and given to someone else. Akbar also maintained a group of special soldiers called the Ahadis and strong artillery. The Mughal army under Akbar was an efficient fighting machine.